Diana Angelini. I'm a board member of LookUp. I have been for the last year. I'm 28. I live in New York City. I have spent most of my career in financial services and made the switch over to technology earlier this year, which I have been loving. But one of my favorite passions in life is working with women and talking about issues and initiatives that women are facing both in the workplace and personally with mental health, technology, communication, connectivity. And so I am thrilled to be moderating this panel today with three incredible women who I wish I knew when I was their age. We're joined by Karin, Beatrix, and Maddie, and I'm so grateful to introduce them. We're going to be talking today about the impacts of social media on mental health. What are some things that have happened to us as a result of social media and comparison culture? What are some of the things that we can do to help ourselves in the future, knowing what we know now, and advice to our younger selves? So with that, I'm going to have each panelist give a brief introduction of themselves, a little bit about what they do, how they found LookUp, and what they're joining here today to talk about, and then they'll popcorn to the next panelist. So Karin, let's start with you in Australia.
Hi, my name's Karin. I'm 15 and I'm based in Australia. I found LookUp through LinkedIn, and so I kind of went scrolling a bit and found this. Looked really exciting, so I applied to speak, and here I am. I will mostly be talking about relationships on social media and the connections you can make, and sometimes the negative effects that can come with that. I guess, Madelyne.
Amazing. Maddie, let's go to you next.
Okay, awesome. Hi, I'm Maddie. I am a student at Colgate University. I'm a senior this year. I found LookUp through one of my sister's close friends, actually. And I was introduced to it, and I'm now here talking on the panel. And I am here to share my story of struggling with an eating disorder in high school, and where I've grown and come from that, and what I've learned, especially dealing with social media and comparison culture through that experience. Beatrix.
Hi, I'm Beatrix. I'm 17. I go to Riverdale Country School in New York City. I work with Boston Children's Hospital's newly launched Digital Wellness Lab as head of their youth advisory board and content strategizer. And I also teach media literacy classes at my school and at my old middle school in California. So on a daily basis, I'm talking to young middle school girls and boys about body image, comparison culture, and basically the stuff that we're talking about today. So I'm really happy to be here and be a part of this conversation.
Amazing. You guys are all so impressive, and I'm so excited for everyone to hear your guys' stories today. Just some quick housekeeping items before we launch into the session. So if you have any questions, we definitely want to make this as conversational as possible. So we're going to riff off each other, and we want you guys to riff with us too. So feel free to chat any questions in the Q&A chat. Just fire them away, as well as if there's something that you like that we said, let's amplify each other's voices. Let's put some exclamation points and hearts and yes, and hype each other up. So feel free to use the Q&A at any point, and we are going to devote like the last 10 or 15 minutes also to Q&A as well. So on the topic of comparison culture, I feel like so much of our lives, even myself right now, like presenting, is in this mode where we are trying to be our best selves and put our best selves forward. And what I would really love this panel to do is just kind of break down some of the walls and encourage vulnerability. So Maddie, I would love for you to share your story about, your experience in high school and, how a technology, impacted your mental health as well.
Yeah, I would love to share. I spent my freshman year of high school in Puerto Rico. I lived with my godparents and their kids, and it was an amazing year. And the summer I came back from Puerto Rico, I think adjusting to change, having lived on a beach in a bathing suit for a while, I was diagnosed with anorexia that summer going into my sophomore year of high school, and spent throughout my sophomore year and junior year of high school and up until the end of the summer, going into my senior year, I was in and out of different treatment places, and they were all very different, addressed different issues, different age groups. And I was just constantly in and out of this comparison culture to my friends, different social media, how different social media outlets would maybe sometimes support and help me connect to people who I didn't know but could relate to in similar struggles, but also this kind of stereotypical way that people in different societies have to live, women have to live, have to look, have to act. And I struggled definitely in and out. But yeah, I found that my last treatment center was really, really helpful in just kind of allowing me to embrace who I was, disconnecting from social media, connecting to nature, connecting to different aspects of my life that really resonated with me. And having come out of that, I have addressed different issues in my town with my family, with my sisters, comparison culture in those aspects, socioeconomic status, physical appearances, everything like that. And yeah, I don't know, I've learned a lot about myself through that process, about others. And I think just having people to talk to and connect to and being vulnerable is so important, because I think social media also doesn't allow us to represent who we are in an emotional context. So much of it is about, oh, what like fun activity am I going to? My life always has to look great and happy and amazing. And I think it's so important to express who we are in a lot of different aspects, including social media, especially because of how broad social media is becoming and connecting to everywhere or everyone in so many different parts of the world.
Yeah, I could not agree more, especially on the piece around like, who are we? What do we want to talk about emotionally? How can we connect to people? And on social media, it's a lot of the superficial stuff, right? Of, what vacations are you on? What clothes are you wearing? Who are you photographed with? And it can be just a lot of pressure. And I love what you said about, social media being used for good. And I think that's actually an amazing segue into the work that Karin is doing with her organization called PhenomeWomen, which is an organization that connects women digitally to talk about real things. So Karin, I would love for you to share how you founded PhenomeWomen, the genesis behind it, and what PhenomeWomen is doing with these groups and organizations to basically to have these real conversations and be genuine and authentic with each other.
Yeah, so I'm, a young person living in rural New South Wales in Australia. And so I rarely ever felt that my opinion, was getting up to the higher tier sort of people. And I realized the best way to feel heard was to gain important connections and meet important people. So I went on LinkedIn, made connections to all these people, reached out, and then just started spreading my idea. And so I started also applying to every extracurricular and meeting all these new people from different backgrounds and different places. And they all had different beliefs, different ideas, different takes on things, and different issues that we may not experience in our own countries. And so the people I met allowed me to reach a wider audience. And the simple step of going to a debating club or public speaking led me to creating PhenomeWomen and giving those opportunities to other young women in now over 30 countries.
Wow.
And so I just want young women globally to feel like they do have a voice, they are going to be heard. And yeah, PhenomeWomen does that, through a blog, a podcast, a competition we've got going on. So it's all very exciting.
And how are some of the ways that you amplify these women's voices? And what are some of the topics that these women are talking about in PhenomeWomen?
So everything we're doing, it's all young women based. So everyone on my team is 13 to 18.
Wow.
So it's like a little project they're running to really feel like they have a small impact in something big. And so we have a blog, all our blog writers, are young women, all passionate. And we talk about things like what one of our writers called news fatigue. And it's being up on your phone all day, constantly being wanting to be updated. Like I don't want to miss out, like the fear of missing out, some FOMO. And something like women in Afghanistan was a really trending topic, a month back. And so that we talked about that. So we talk about modern trending current issues, but also issues that have been around for a long time.
Wow, that is super cool. I think that's amazing. And Beatrix, I would love to hear from you. Now, you mentioned that you were working on the Digital Wellness Lab and, hosting these conversations with young women. What are some of the topics that are coming up right now that are most top of mind, would you say?
Yeah, this is I think like just a great example in general of one of the sneaky social media kind of things that parents really can't grasp, and students and peers can, like group chats. It's something that seems so simple and efficient, but can actually be super exclusive and isolating and hurtful. So right now that's like the unit that I'm focusing on for media literacy. I wrote an article for Digital Wellness Lab about it. That's on their website, but it's basically just how I think that it's something that's just very hard hitting today and currently that is kind of being overlooked.
In what way? What are some of the things that we can do in group chats to make them more positive and to encourage better behavior, I guess, in group chats? Because I've personally been left out of group chats. I have been in group chats where, I wasn't supposed to be in, and I saw something I wasn't supposed to see about me. I've done that to someone else. There are definitely a lot of negative behaviors with group chats. So what are some of the things that we can do?
Yeah, I think that one of the biggest kind of things that we do as human beings on social media is following the masses. And I think that happens with group chats as well. When people all gang up on one person, that one person is being ganged up on and people won't speak out. And I think that's something that could really transform the way that we interact and behave on social media is to individualize and to differentiate like our actions and our intentions as opposed to others. And I think that's something that we don't do because of the quantified popularity of, well, if you post this certain aesthetic perfect picture and like you pay attention to the little details and really just observe your body and find every single flaw, we all follow that standard, even like unknowingly, some of us do, so I think that having the boldness and bravery to stand out and be unique and individualize your own opinion and your own prerogative when it comes to your intentions online and who you care about and who you want to defend and if you want to be a bystander or stand up for somebody, being able to make that choice and not feel like you're going to be persecuted afterwards for it.
Yeah, I think that is so beautifully said, but it's easier said than done, especially in high school. Like I remember I was wearing, like when I was in high school, everybody had North Face and Tory Burch flats and skinny jeans, and I wore what everyone else wore because what are some things that you guys think that we can do to inspire more confidence in young women? And I know, Maddie, you and I talked about this the other day with, being at schools that are, ultra competitive, and a lot of people are very similar. And what are some things that we can do to imprint this sense of individuality and confidence in younger women?
If I could just super quickly step back in, I think that we actually are already kind of starting to formulate, this idea of, different bodies, they all mean beautiful, and there's not one certain thing and blueprint to go off of. I just think that it needs to be implemented more widespread throughout social media as well, not just on ads or, you know, certain promotions on social media, but more genuinely.
Within the apps themselves?
I think so. I think that social media has the ability to promote this content, and it should be. If it was really looking out for our minds and our mental health, I think that social media would do what would benefit everybody and promote content that, you know, promotes confidence as opposed to feeling self-deprecation and feeling insecure.
Yeah, for sure. Maddie, what do you think? I know we talked about this yesterday.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if I just think that addressing like being our own individual selves on social media is so important. And I think just like being able to like promote, this is like who I want to promote about, or this is what I want to promote about myself, to express who I am as an individual and who I want others to see. And I think just like embracing, definitely like creating an example for other people, just like embracing who you are as an individual, like who I am. I want to promote who I am on my social media to then allow others to like see that and not maybe have it be so much of a comparison, but embracing the individual parts of who we are on social media, because everyone has their own like lives, has their own activities that they're involved in, and places to be vulnerable. I know that I've started maybe posting some poetry that I've written on my Instagram stories that I used to feel maybe that's not something that I should post on Instagram, but just allowing maybe those spaces to, because so many people connect with me through that space, and allowing people to see those raw sides of who I am also.
Yeah, I think that's amazing. And Karin, are there things that you're doing in PhenomeWomen to help individualize amongst the group?
I mean, yeah, I was kind of just gonna piggyback of Madelyne because she kind of said exactly what was in my head. And so we've seen like a lot of TikTok creators especially come up now and like really be what we would classify as like their weird kind of selves and show off their like funny side a lot. And so they've built a community, they've built a platform on that. And if people manage to be able to do that and meet those like-minded peers with the same interests and passions, I think we'll really get far. And I think that PhenomeWomen is a space where that definitely happens in our, like, you know, community section.
Yeah, I think that's awesome. I wish I felt better about being weirder when I was in high school and younger. I like can't wait to tell my future kids to like be as weird as possible, because I feel like that's just promotes happiness. So I know one of the things that we wanted to talk about today was mental health and how the apps are leading statistically to deteriorated mental health in young women. Let's start with Beatrix. I know this was something that you had talked about, you know, whether it's actually within the apps themselves. And can you just share a little bit of, you know, research that you guys have done with Digital Wellness Lab, or things that you guys have talked about in regards to how technology and social media in particular impacts mental health, and how mental health is declining because of it, and depression rates as well?
I mean, I think it's mainly just because it's a toxic environment where you're constantly seeing people not represented the right way and not representing themselves in a way that you see them. And it's a confusing time where like you have your true version and then your online self, which is just as true and just as important as your tangible person, you know? And I think it's really stressful. No matter what, even if you don't post on social media like I do, I'm stressed because I don't have that image out there, you know, and people might not want to be friends with me because they don't know like who I'm friends with or what I'm doing or what I post or what my aesthetic is or what my feed is. And that's stressful. And I don't even post on Instagram. But if you do, like, you're constantly second guessing pictures you post. You're constantly second guessing, you know, if this selfie had the right lighting, or maybe it was too blurry, or maybe my tooth looked like, it's just, it's absurd. And I don't think that there's ever been a point in time where we've been so meticulously just replaying moments and looking at ourselves, in every single minuscule detail, judging ourselves, and also knowing that other people are seeing us and judging us, because we also judge other people. So I think that it's just a really stressful environment in general, and it's hard to escape. And I think it's, our responsibility to have a good intention going in and try not to get distracted by things that are fake or things that aren't realistic. But I also, as I said before, think it's also social media's responsibility to not put us in this situation in the first place.
Yeah, that's spot on. We actually have a number of questions in the chat coming up around this kind of thing. So I think it would be great to address some of these questions while we have the time. So one of the questions that just came in was, during the Facebook hearings in Washington, one executive made the following comment: "We do not allow content that promotes or encourages eating disorders, and we remove the accounts shared with us for breaking these rules." What do you think? Is Facebook doing enough to protect young girls? So is Facebook doing enough to stop promoting content that encourages eating disorders? And what do you guys think?
Can I just quickly hop in?
Yes. Oh my gosh. No. Yeah. Don't ever just hop in.
If Facebook were to delete every account that encouraged eating disorders, I'm pretty sure 70% of the accounts would immediately be deleted, because everyone, like anything everyone posts, right? Well, our image now is skinny girl on the beach, bikini bottoms, great, right? Everyone who posts that, to someone who might be bigger in size, they might, constantly see that on their feed. And then, that's it. They're gone. They're going into an eating disorder, and it's a tough place to get out of. And so if Facebook really was doing enough and saying what they're doing, I don't even know if I would have my social media account, right? So that's just the unfortunate reality.
Yeah, I was gonna, Karin, I totally agree with you. I think what's hard about social media, either promoting or trying not to promote different body image, like mental health, like eating disorders, things like that. I think social media has this way to get you trapped. Like you can get trapped in this rabbit hole of, oh, I look at this one image of maybe a recipe that looks really good. Maybe I want to cook this recipe. And then you continue like sliding, and then it advertises, oh, this is a recipe that advertises more like healthy cooking styles or something like that. And then the next post is something that just dangerously goes down that rabbit hole. And I think it's so hard to avoid. It's definitely, I think, yeah, just you can't, it's like you said, Karin, like 70%. I'm not on Facebook personally a lot, but I would say I'm on Instagram most of the time. And I would say that there's a lot of content that either very broadly or very subtly promotes or addresses eating disorders or mental health. And a lot of people, from my personal experience, I can be triggered in different ways, different subtle ways. And I think that really anything anyone posts can be triggering to at least one other person in some way, shape, or form. And so I think social media in itself is a really hard topic. And that's why I think just promoting who you are as a person and addressing these issues is so important, because you could really help someone else also through promoting your vulnerable self.
Yeah, I totally agree with both of you. And just to add on, with the whole Facebook, is it addressing a thing? I think what Facebook and Instagram are doing is pretending like they don't understand that it's not about if their apps are shouting, get skinnier in our face. It's the subliminal things, and it's not only eating disorders or body comparison. It's your friend commenting something shady or like kind of petty on a post, and you spending hours thinking about it in your head and overthinking and over assuming. It's like the little subliminal things that Facebook can pretend like they don't understand. And they can be like, hey, like, what do you mean we blocked that person from calling you fat? Like, but that's not the point. It's the pictures of the little waist and the videos with, like, it's just everything can be photoshopped and everything can be fake, but there are also, beautiful people that look like that and beautiful people that look like everything else. But it's how they're being promoted over other things. It's more about the subliminal content and the subliminal interactions than the big picture things that they're saying that they're confronting.
Right. Because how can they be objective in that? Like we talked about, everyone has different trigger warnings or trigger points, or especially, different things. So, if that girl on TikTok is promoting, waking up at 4 and doing morning workouts and drinking her matcha and whatever, and then it's like, swipe up for the link. Like, oh, are they going to remove that? It's just a girl posting her morning routine, but like, to her at least. But to us, it's like, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so triggered by that. I'm not that. I'm comparing myself, like, oh my gosh, I'm, piece of garbage. Like, all of this, like, whole mental, just like reels just go over and over in my head. So how can they be the ones to decipher that? So yeah, I definitely relate. Oh yeah, there's amazing. It looks like the pop is chatting. The chat is popping off about this too. But yeah, I think, what are some things that, and on the positive side of that question, that Instagram could do, instead of saying, we're going to delete all the negative content around eating disorders? Like, what are some positive things that they could be doing? But like we've talked about a lot, like, promoting different body types, right? Like, are there more things like that they could be doing?
I think one thing is tagging content that could be photoshopped or altered, as well as like biased or conspiracy content. And I don't think that this is because tagging these photos as photoshopped would shame women. Because I think that what we should do, as opposed to looking at Photoshop and editing pictures as such a negative thing, I think we should just be like, take back the power and be like, yeah, like in this day and age, like everything is photoshopped, like everything has a filter a lot of the time. And if it doesn't, great. If it does, who cares? Like, great too. And a lot of Photoshop is beautiful as well. So I think that if we just make the word neutral and stop having such a negative stigma and connotation to it, and we can then also ease our minds by looking at a picture and being like, oh, that's not realistic. Like, I don't need to compare myself to this. I can just be happy for them that they look great, and I can be happy for myself,
Yeah.
I think also it's so easy to promote like content creators or just like anyone who's really being vulnerable and being their own self on social media. And so I think if other people see that, it'll be really encouraging, and, might just spark something and be like, well, they're doing it. Why can't I? Like, yes, there's this type of person, this type of person, this type of person. But, we all live together, right, in one big world. And so we all have to work together and get along. And so as Beatrix said, yeah, like, be happy for them and be comfortable in your own skin, that kind of thing.
Yeah. So it sounds like to me there are kind of two sides to the coin, right? It's can Facebook and Instagram and the tech companies be doing to promote better mental health, connectivity, transparency, vulnerability, and then what we as individuals can be doing. So I think it's important, as we go throughout the questions, to talk a little bit about, each of these things separately. And I think what we've been talking about is amazing. We can be more vulnerable. We can hype each other up. We can be more ourselves and individuals and post content that's super unique and weird to us. And the companies can do their part as well. So I feel like those two things really need to meet in the middle. One of the questions that we got from the chat was, and this actually feeds really well into what can we do? What are your recommendations on staying healthy and active and feeling good without self-comparison, eating disorders as a result of too much screen time?
I definitely, and there was a comment in the chat also addressing a little bit of how we can promote this. I think commenting in general can be either so good, so beneficial, or can have a negative impact. I think wording, phrasing is really important. Like how you post certain images, what your captions are. And I think addressing certain things not relating to people's physical appearance can be so important. Like something, oh my gosh, like, you know, that whatever, if you're posting like in front of a tree, like, oh my gosh, that scenery looks beautiful, or like something maybe not addressing like, oh wow, you look, you know,
Right.
addressing physical
Great photo.
appearances.
What a pretty sunset. Like, looks like you're having
Yeah.
fun.
Yeah, something like that. And then I think in regards to being healthy, staying active, I think that's also such an individual, like people are active in very different ways and use screen time in those ways. I would say definitely with COVID, I think there's been a lot more online social media ways to stay active just because gyms have been closed. People haven't been allowed to work out outside in a lot of spaces. And I think just tailoring those, it's a lot of like trial and error. And I think definitely what I've and this is like personal, but like meditation, yoga, like taking time to breathe and just like focus on my mental well-being stability is so important. I think also in regards to staying active, because staying active doesn't necessarily mean like going outside and going for a run like at this time because, oh, I see that this person's doing that and that other person's doing that. Like doing things like listening to your body is really something that I think is important. And social media can definitely be supportive and sometimes really not supportive in those regards. So I think definitely just tailoring different outlets to your like your body, what your body needs.
Love it. Love it. What about you, Karin? What are some things that you do or recommend to stay, to feel good without comparison or too much screen time?
I think Maddie really covered it all. But also, if you have the power to at least somewhat choose what you see, choose the good stuff. Like, not this don't necessarily follow news channels that all you'll see, like for example, in Australia during COVID, we've been the most locked down country in the world. And so every time you go on social media, 1,000 cases today. All right, cool, great. But what is it? That's not going to affect me positively at all. And so actually depression rates went up so much during that time, almost up by 30%. And just choosing what you want to see, what you want to affect you on a daily basis. I think it's really important to make the right decisions and go for good.
Yeah, definitely. I know personally, like one thing that I was doing was I had social media habits like right when I woke up in the morning and then right before I went to bed at night. So, it was like right before I went to bed at night, it was just kind of like some mindless scrolling and numbing out right before bed. And when I woke up in the morning, it was the first thing I saw. And I noticed that that's when I was like comparing myself to most. It was the tone that I was starting my day with. And so for me, it's been trying to be better about having like sleep hygiene, as Susan would call it, and putting my phone away from my bed, or at least for like the 30 minutes before bed, either trying to read or journal or do something that's not scrolling. And then when I wake up in the morning, like feet on the ground is what my therapist calls it. Like just get my feet on the ground. Don't like go straight to the phone and scroll and open things, because like setting the tone for the day and then setting the tone to go to bed for the next day, that really has impacted the way I felt a lot. And Karin, I love what you said about, choose the good stuff. Like I actually did a bit of a social media purge last year and created a new Instagram account where I could like follow people and things I wanted, because it was just getting too much with all these like influencers and bikinis and everybody's selling their own things. And so for me, it's been following like drag queens and recipes and demois, and I don't know, like all random things, but I really have taken both of those recommendations to heart, and it's helped me tremendously in the last year.
I wanted to speak, if it's okay, to sleep
Yes.
hygiene. And I think in regards to social media, I'm actually taking a psychology of sleep course this semester currently. And we have talked a lot about sleep hygiene in regards to social media, having a phone right by you when you go to bed, having that like, oh, if you're stuck in your thoughts, I think we were talking about this the other day, like, oh, just having my phone, I can forget about those thoughts and go on Instagram or go on Snapchat or whatever and see what other people are doing. And then that in and of itself, that triggers maybe some comparison, maybe some fear of missing out, like Karin mentioned earlier. And it then also hinders your sleep, which then can affect and perpetuate this cycle of waking up, feeling tired, not feeling great about yourself, maybe not feeling well rested, that then contributes to like poor or not really taking the best care of yourself throughout that day because maybe you didn't get the best night's sleep. And then you're tired and groggy, and maybe then you use social media as a resort to, oh, I'm just gonna chill here and go on my phone. And then that cycle continues. And I just think like taking care of certain things such as sleep, taking time for mindfulness, doing something that doesn't involve social media, the phone, like whether or not you paint or you can't paint at all. I don't paint, but I try. And it's just something to do that, takes your mind away and can also ease you into like this better cycle of getting a good night's rest and then not really like using social media as that coping mechanism. So.
Yeah, that's amazing. And also too, it's like your eyes are so stimulated at night, like right before you're going to bed. And I have got TikTok audios in my head, like trying to fall asleep and it just doesn't work. But I love that. I love that. And wasn't there another class that you were taking also that kind of talks about like mental health and like, some stuff in your brain? Would love to hear about that also, Maddie.
So I actually am taking another class. It's called Sociology of Death, Dying, and Grieving, and relating to social media and the mediatization of death and dying. And I think that's been such an interesting thing that I had no idea that people have these lives on social media. And when you die, that's there. All that information is there. So it's like, what do you want to promote about yourself on social media that you want other people to see? Or maybe like, for me, I don't want people to always see that like social media can sometimes be, oh, I'm happy all the time, like we were talking about earlier, but just like being able to be vulnerable because so many people look to you, like no matter where your life takes you. And like your information, it's scary to think about, but your information is online for a while or can be online for a while. And I just think, thinking about that in regards to what you post, in regards to like being who you want to be, like now, 10 years from now, 20 years from now, things like that.
Yeah, and Disha said it in the chat as well. She said, it's interesting to see people compare themselves to others on social media, but foster more comparison by portraying the more perfect sides of their life. It creates a toxic cycle that really never ends because you're picking and choosing, those photos at any given time. And those are there for, oh yeah, Beatrix, yeah, your digital footprint or tattoo. Elaborate more on that. I want to know more about my digital tattoo.
Well, yeah, it's basically exactly what she said. You covered it pretty well. I first learned about it in middle school when social media first came into all of our lives. And I think that is something that people really do not notice. And the second that you tell like a teenage boy, for example, that that his digital, footprint is stuck on the earth forever, he freaks out. And there's a reason for that. There's a reason that we should be mindful when we comment things or go online, because that could literally be brought up 4 years later. And it could actually ruin your life. And we've seen this in many cases in cancel culture. Those are from digital footprints from 4 years ago. Things are being brought up that were allowed earlier and not allowed now, were accepted as openly. So, I think that it's something that we should definitely educate people on a whole lot more. And also I like tattoo a little bit more just because it's like hard to remove, you know what I mean? It's like a digital tattoo or footprint, but
And
Yes.
just to go on that, like if you have a negative digital footprint, for example, or say you found a photo and you've deleted it, right? As Beatrix said, 4 years later, you're in a job interview. They pull up your socials because that is what they do now. And they see this one photo that you posted a long time ago and they're like, no, not going to cut it for this job. You're not the kind of person we want to see. But so they've already made a decision about you before you've sat down and actually talked with the interviewer. And so that puts you at such a disadvantage if what you're posting is either negative or it was just something silly that you forgot about or anything like that. And so your digital footprint is powerful.
Yeah. I mean, even what people are saying about you stays. And I know you mentioned cancel culture, but being who you are outside of social media also impacts and can carry into social media, where people can post things about you and they're not instantly deleted. And, people and companies can see that. So, of course you want to like have a great digital footprint and tattoo, but you also want to be a good person outside of social media too, because you never know, like there's such a world, it's such a transparent world right now where you could pretty much it's hard to get away with anything, I feel like. So, one other question. I know we've got about 10 minutes left, so I want to make sure we get to all the questions. Have you noticed any changes or implementations to the reforms that have been shared to apps before? So, what are some things that you've seen social media try and do? And maybe Beatrix, this is a question for you, since I know that you are pretty close to, tech founders and reform conversations, but what progress has been made with these big tech companies?
One thing that I thought would be implemented and actually really benefit youth is the number of likes and quantified popularity being taken away. This was something that was widely discussed and we were all aware of it, but then it just kind of faded away. It's the same thing with the TikTok being canceled. It was supposed to be taken away and then it didn't. It feels like there are all these, they give us these okay, we might do something, we're going to do something. And then it's just nothing, or for example, Facebook put up a lot more security around the type of data that got out around the election last year. But after the election, it's back to normal. It's back to how they used to be, how they used to profit more with the more drama, more bias, conspiracy theories. So I honestly don't think that they've done anything, to be quite frank.
Yeah, I mean, it did seem like the likes thing it happened and then it's not really I can still see it. It was like a beta test that they never followed up on.
I completely agree with Beatrix. And also someone in another question, it was they paused the public plans to launch Instagram for kids. And I think that's exactly the same idea. It's like, oh, well, kids are going on Instagram anyway. They probably shouldn't be. It's not a great platform to be if you're still trying to figure out the world, figuring out who you are. And so if they're already on there, Instagram's like, oh, we'll make a platform specifically for them so they're not exposed to as much of the negative impact. But it's paused. So where's the change actually coming in? When are they actually doing anything?
Yeah, definitely. And I do want to get to the Instagram kids section, but one of the things that we talked about, Beatrix, this week was, the fact that these companies and adults in general, let's say, are apprehensive to take action because they don't know what action to take. And I would love for you to share that story about when you tried to start the digital media literacy class at your school and what their reaction was to that, because I just thought that spoke, honestly, that anecdote for me hit home for an entire generation, it resonates with an entire generation. And I just think that's so interesting about why a lot of this action hasn't been taking place yet.
Yeah, I think that you're right. When schools don't take things seriously and they pretend like social media doesn't affect the mental health and our prerogative when we come into school and our mindset as we enter school the next day, then, they're ignoring and they're not addressing the problem at hand. So when I first moved to New York City, I would go to the chorus room a lot in my lunch freeze, and there happened to be a 7th grade class there that I would sit in and help teach. And through the 7th grade class, a lot of the kids would come up to me and talk about their problems, or they'd be making TikToks. And I was like, oh my gosh, these kids are getting started a whole lot earlier than even 2 years ago when I was their age. You know, they're at like a whole entire other level than me. Like, and so I went to the school with the idea of formulating a club, or at least helping in some of their classes. And, you know, the reaction I got was very, very mixed. From the counselors, they were supportive and they understood that this was something that should be addressed. But it's scary for schools to open up this kind of can of worms and address a problem that if they make themselves liable for, then they're going to have to deal with all the cyberbullying and things that happen after school or even during school, but you know, that they've been kind of stepping around for the past 10, 11 years. So it took me like a year and a half to finally convince them to let me lead an assembly. And then eventually after that, a lot of kids were just emailing me and reaching out independently to ask questions and ask for guidance. And, you know, I showed the overwhelming proof that, you know, this is a space that we need to make, that we need to formalize. And so now I have a club at my school now, and you know, it's really great. But it was shocking to me coming to this school because I kind of expected it to be a little bit more progressive and address those issues. My old middle school even did a lot earlier on. So it just makes me wonder what other school curriculums are like, and if other schools are addressing it or have clubs. And like Karin, I would love to hear about, you know, in Australia, if it's prevalent to be talking about these issues, or, you know.
Yeah, so we do sometimes, it is talked about, but it's not from a student or youth perspective. It's often like the police who come in like once a year to say like year 7 to 9 and be like, you cannot post this, you cannot do this, this will get you in jail. And it's that kind of thing is not going to make anyone take it seriously. Like the boys walk in there laughing and walk out laughing. Nobody takes it seriously. And I think that's a big problem. Like we're not getting it from the people who are most affected by it. We're not getting heard from real stories, but we're just being presented from like a third person point of view. Like they're putting fear into it. And I don't think they should be doing that, because that's just not how things like that is not going to make you change anything, because then you're just afraid to do anything at all, whether good or bad. And then you just end up in a hole bigger than the one you're in the first place.
And to really quickly add on, I think that some of us as youth find it humorous when adults try to condescend and talk down to us on media, because it's like, you don't know our like experience on it, you don't understand it, you can't grasp it, so why are you trying to put limitations or like tell me what to do or tell me how to act? You know, it's kind of taken as a joke. So I completely relate to what you're saying and think that is an absolutely horrid way to go about education.
Yeah. Well, in the interest of time, I know that we have to wrap because there is a very exciting keynote happening. So everyone will have to come back to the main stage after this to see Amanda LeCount, who is like the queen of body positivity. So super excited to see her. We did want to touch on Instagram Kids. Sounds like the general consensus is just delete it. So we can wrap up with that. But I did just want to do one rapid fire round of questions with the panelists. What is something that you wish you knew a few years ago when you started using social media that is advice you'd want to give to your younger self and or the next generation of girls who are coming up with social media?
I'll just say, just be yourself. Like, yes, you're going to see all these different people. They're all unique, they're all special, and they're all comfortable in their own skin and doing what they want to do. And if they're doing that, then you should be doing that too. And even if they're not, you should like stand up from the crowd. Like, I understand why people want to like try and fit in, and, you know, it's all that assimilation that saying, I want to be just like you. So, you know, I don't bring too much attention to myself, but that often pushes out and that vulnerability. And I think that's really important to be able to be yourself on social media, especially.
I love it.
Yeah, I would totally agree. And I would just say, like, you know, there are all these phrases like, oh, if you post that, that's weird or that's not cool. But what is weird? Like, what is cool? You know, like that has so many different definitions or different perspectives from so many different people. And I think, like Karin was saying, just be yourself. I wish I had posted more of like what I like truly wanted to post when I first discovered social media. And I think I'm getting into that. So, which is good. So yeah.
I think, sorry.
No, go ahead.
I think the biggest takeaway is to actually like take breaths before sending a text message or posting something. Especially in the heat of the moment, sending text messages, you can really it can backfire on you the next morning when you look back and you're like, I did not mean that. And we have to keep in mind that we can communicate now and also communicate what we communicated like quicker than ever. So what you say to somebody, they can screenshot and show people, and that will be their impression of you. We live in a different world now, and we have to, be prepared for it. So I think that just taking breaths and thinking that, maybe my big sister is watching what I'm typing right now, or my mom's looking over my shoulder, is a really important way to make sure that you don't do something that you might regret later and hurt somebody that you don't want to hurt.
I love that. I love that so much. What a perfect way to end, is just to practice the pause, practice breathing, meditating, focus on what you want to say, communicate in person and on the phone, and your digital tattoo lasts forever. And I love what Karin said, choose the good stuff. I think that's the perfect way to end. So thank you guys all so much for joining. And thank you to our beautiful, beautiful panelists. You're getting so much hype in the chat right now for who you are and what you said, not the way we look. So this is a great example of hype, and really looking forward to seeing everyone on the next session. So with that, have a great, great weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Great job.